All right, everyone. So it's 1:30, so I think we should get started while the remaining people kind of trickle in. But I know it's the Friday before spring break, but we have two really nice presenters here to tell you about what opportunities you guys will have during most likely your gap years for most students in this program. So first we will have Mr. Arnold here talk about CapYear and that kind of company and how you could use that going forward.
Well, Gabby, thank you. I appreciate it. And again, especially since it's Friday before spring break, I try to make it as painless as possible. I do appreciate everybody uh, coming today. We've really enjoyed presenting in the past, and I think, especially given where we're located, I think when certainly talking about clinical experience, I think we could be a great resource for you. So I'll sort of launch in here. Let me bring up the slideshow. Is that's coming through for everybody? Okay, perfect. So CapYear, we'll talk quickly about what we're going to be covering today. So one, we're going to talk a little bit about why clinical experience is important. A lot of you know that, hey, if I want to get into medical school or PA school, I need clinical experience. But we'll try to go a little deeper on that question to help frame up what kinds of clinical experience might make sense for you. We're going to talk about how employers think about hiring pre-meds and pre-med, pre-PA students, and why it can be so hard to get a job, and things you can do, sort of tips and tricks on how to actually land clinical jobs, which employers might be more inclined, and in sort of helping to shed light a little bit more on how they're thinking about hiring, so you're able to then position your candidacy in a way that's really going to resonate with those employers. So first, just 10 seconds on CapYear. We started Cap, we're based out of Baltimore, Maryland, so we're really active in the DMV, but have expanded to several major metros up and down the East Coast. And essentially, we started CapYear as a platform because we think it's fundamentally crazy that in a world where there are so many open entry-level clinical positions, that it is so hard for people who are planning to go to med school or PA school to get jobs. We have seen, particularly in operating over the last 18 months, what a great job pre-med and pre-PA students, I'd say pre-health generally, but I know we'll sort of focus mainly on pre-med, pre-PA, do when they get hired into these positions. And we've seen it over and over again. And yet it still remains a huge challenge. And so CapYear exists as a platform to help address that challenge. So our goal is to make it easier to access clinical experience, help build clinical skills that'll make you more employable, or sort of at least give employers the sense that you've got more training going in, and just general professional development at the start of your careers, particularly either while you're in school or during a gap year before going to med school or PA school. So that's a little bit about CapYear, and I'll show you our job board at the end, which is the resource that we're sort of best known for. So there's sort of this question about, like, why do I need clinical experience? And it's actually because it's probably rooted in the best answer to that sort of insidious question that you get, which is, why do you want to be a doctor? Why do you want to get into medicine? And I would frame it up that clinical experience really gives you the ability to answer that question. The difference between kind of thinking it's something you want to do versus knowing that it's something you want to do. And not only knowing that you want to do it, but having a clearer sense of where in the healthcare delivery continuum kind of makes the most sense for you. You could define that as doctor versus PA versus nurse. You could define that as surgery versus internal medicine. You could define that with different patient populations. But until you're actually doing the work, you may believe you know where you want to go, but most of the time in the process of doing it, that perspective changes. And your ability to articulate why you want to pursue this as a field just becomes that much more sharper and speaks more to the clinical competencies that the AAMC and PA schools are looking for when you're talking about in the context of applications. So what we generally see, right, is this sort of, again, there's the insidious why question. So tell me why you want to be a PA. And a lot of times the question gets answered at this sort of level. I love science and I really like to help people. Maybe you had a family member that was sick and you saw the impact that the people that provided care gave to that family member. Maybe you have a parent that is a physician or a nurse or a PA. And that when that's really sort of the inspiration phase, right? And that is valid and essential, right, to deciding that you want to get into medicine. And so the question, like inspiration is sort of where that answer starts, but it's not where that answer should end. And I think when you're thinking about the context of PA school and medical school, that's, I think, where the differentiation comes into play. So you have the inspiration level, which we just talked about. Then there's kind of the professional identity formation. And this is where shadowing can really be a great tool, right? To sort of figure out, okay, I know that I want to be in medicine, or I think this is where I want to go. Shadowing is a great way for you to start to get exposure to different areas of medicine, different roles within healthcare delivery, to figure out which of these roles best aligns with what you're interested in and sort of it just kind of fits you best. Um, that sort of that ability to then sort of articulate, like, not that I think I want to be in medicine, but I've gone to different doctors' offices and I've shadowed in different settings, will start to give you a much clearer sense of all the different options and possibilities that are out there and where you feel you probably fit the best. And it may not be where you thought it was when you start. But professional identity formation is sort of one step. The next step is pre-professional competency building. And this is really where the admissions committees and the AAMC want you to be able to articulate in your applications, right? It's the ability to articulate based on your actual experience that you've developed some foundational professional competencies to thrive as a clinician. And you can demonstrate kind of the complex realities of delivering patient care, everything from working in a team setting to having cultural empathy for patients to developing effective patient communication skills. Those are really the things that they want to see. And by far the best way to actually be able to articulate those things is through clinical experience. These are, I highlight the AAMC professional competencies. This is just straight from their website. And PA school, if anything, almost has an even greater emphasis on getting clinical experience. And a lot of it is because they want to see in their candidates some combination or some development around these pre-professional competencies. And when you look at these things like cultural awareness or oral communication or teamwork and collaboration in a healthcare setting, unless you've actually been in that work, it can be harder to articulate that you've developed these competencies. So that's sort of why clinical experience, right? Clinical experience takes you from inspiration to sort of figuring out with the ability to articulate even better or sort of clearer for you where you fit in. And then actually doing the work, you start to build the skills that they're really looking for, in the application process. And really just not even in the application process, but just as you start your career as a clinician, that you've started to build these foundational skills, which no matter what healthcare career path you take in terms of care delivery, they're going to be essential. So that's the whole idea. Let's get past just inspiration and really get from thinking that you want to be in medicine or there are reasons you're inspired to do it to actually getting to, I know that this is what I want to do. And not only that I want to be in medicine, but with much more clarity where I fit in. By the way, if anyone has any questions, I'm definitely a big talker. Shoot them in the chat, interrupt me, no problem. There'll be time at the end for sure, but if there are things that we're talking about as we go through, please feel free to raise your hand or interrupt or throw something in the chat. So this, we get this a lot from people. I've sent my resume to 50 employers and basically nobody gets back to me. And it's really frustrating. And it's that sentence, if there's anything that was sort of the driver for the creation of CapYear, it's this. Because everyone that is on this call today has the drive, the ambition, the capability to be a great medical assistant or sort of perform in some kind of entry-level clinical role. And yet it can be incredibly hard to actually get employers to pay attention or to sort of secure those positions. There are 4 big reasons, right? Certification is a big one. You guys probably see that a lot when you're applying to jobs. You have to be certified, or certification is preferred, or you need at least 1 year of experience, right? Experience is the second big one. You don't have enough of it. Work hours or perception of work hours, right? If they sort of see you as a student, then they can have concerns as to whether or not you're actually going to be able to work the hours that they need. Or if they know you're planning to go to medical school or PA school, they may have a perception of how long you're actually going to be around. And that, for them, is a red flag. And the 4th is employer type. So we'll get into this, but there are certain employers that are much more rules bound and restricted about hiring people that don't meet the job description. And there are others where there's a lot more flexibility. But the employer type can also really impact why maybe you're not getting a lot of responses to your resumes and the job applications you're sending in. So to dig a little deeper on that, this is kind of how employers are thinking, right? First of all, it's really important to remember that most people, and I'll use medical assistant as kind of shorthand for entry-level positions generally, but most people who are applying to be a medical assistant are not coming out of a post-bac program. Most of them are graduating from high school. They may have taken a course for 6 months, 9 months on how to be a medical assistant. And that's kind of the typical candidate. So hiring mechanisms have been put in place to kind of account for that as a sort of the more typical candidate for these positions. And oftentimes that can stand in as sort of a barrier because there aren't things in the hiring process that account for the fact that you have a different level of education, that maybe you have an ambition to go on to, medical school, that you've got skills just inherent in having navigated college and a post-bac program that aren't necessarily, you're not getting credit for them necessarily in the application process. The second thing is employee turnover is a huge challenge for hiring managers. And employers want to do whatever they can to minimize turnover because it's so disruptive and time consuming. So it's important to keep in mind that while you may be willing to work for 3 months over a summer, it's really can be very disruptive for employers. And so when they see, oh, this person's going to med school or this person's going to PA school, they may have a very different sense of how long you're actually planning on staying. And that can negatively impact how they're viewing your candidacy unless you're addressing it. And related to that is most healthcare providers would say their team is already staffed. Strapped.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Hi, Kristen. Oh, no. Okay. Most healthcare employers would say their team is already strapped, right? That's why they're looking for people because they can't find enough people to fill these positions. And so they worry about having to spend too much time training people when they need help right away. So a lot of employers will say, yes, people coming out of the G2 post-bac program are smart and motivated, but if they have no experience and they've never done this work before, I just don't have the ability to train them. Or I'm worried about how long that training is going to take. So that's another thing that's just in their mind where they look at very impressive resume with high GPAs and a lot of research and club participation and like a clear drive to get into healthcare, they are very skills oriented in their hiring. Many of them are. And the fourth is rules are rules. So particularly large hospital systems, the people that are doing the hiring are on what's called a talent acquisition team, and they're essentially given job descriptions, and they can only accept the people that meet the basic criteria on those job descriptions. So hospital systems, especially, are often have in their job descriptions certain requirements. It is very difficult for the people who are at the front end of actually screening the resumes and looking at them to deviate. They actually can't deviate from what's written there. And so even though you've got very impressive resumes, if they can't check the boxes, they just can't even keep you going in the process. So what do you do about it, right? So this is great. I don't want this to be depressing. It's actually going to be hopeful. Employers, so here's how we see this working, right? Employers are either open to hiring people without certifications or experience, or they are not. They can be very hard to convert. And so part of it is figuring out or identifying which ones are even open to it, because getting people to convert can be really difficult. And you don't even want to waste a lot of time on that. So if there's a healthcare system that has a medical assistant job description written where you have to be a certified medical assistant, getting them to make an exception is incredibly difficult. There are three buckets of medical practices the way we see them. There are small independent practices. That's like 1, 2, 3 offices, physician-owned practices. There are regional specialty groups, kind of in the DC area, Northern Virginia, groups like the Center for Advanced Orthopedics or Anne Arundel Dermatology, Advanced Dermatology. These are larger regional specialty providers that are not hospital affiliated. And then you have hospital systems, not just working in the hospital, but the clinics that are kind of part of the MedStar network or the Inova network or, the Johns Hopkins network. And the general rule is the smaller the practice type, the more flexible they are going to be. So if you are trying to sort of figure out where to spend your energy, so independent practices and the regional specialty groups tend to be a lot more flexible on things like certification or experience than the larger hospital systems are. And part of that is because the doctors are closer, and the providers, generally PAs too, are closer to the hiring process. And they kind of understand inherently, because that's who they were. They imagine themselves and they're like, I know that when I graduated from a post-bac program, I could have come in and done this job. So they're much more open to that and kind of understand that the learning curve is shorter and you're bringing a lot of skills that maybe a typical medical assistant candidate can't. So if you're thinking about where to focus, the smaller the practice, or certainly once you move away from hospital systems, the more likely they are to be open to hiring without experience and certification and valuing what you are bringing as a graduate from a post-bac program on your way to med school or PA school. And there are some specialty practices that do just tend to hire more pre-health candidates. Dermatology is number one, right? If we're going to orthopedics, ophthalmology. This is not to say that there are not specialty groups like that's only these three specialties. But if you were to ask me three specialties where I see a lot of opportunity or more openness to hiring people for a gap year, these are three of the specialties that come to mind or that we see pretty frequently, because they have roles in their care delivery that work well and are sort of trainable pretty quickly within their particular care delivery. So this sort of gives maybe a very high level sense of maybe where to focus your efforts or which kinds of practices might be more open. I think there are also three things that pre-health students tend to underestimate in the hiring practice. So I want to highlight these three things because employers are focused on these, but oftentimes candidates don't realize, and they're not addressing them either in their resume or in a cover letter. So the first is timing. When employers hear, I'm going to go to med school or PA school, a lot of them think you're just going to be around for a couple of months. Or they just sort of automatically think this person's not long term. There are some places out there that want career medical assistants, but I will tell you, the vast majority of medical practices, if you said, you will hire a medical assistant and essentially guarantee they'll be around for 12 months, most of them would say, great. Because the turnover in a significant portion of medical assistants today is way less than 12 months. They're dropping out for all kinds of reasons. They're moving on to other positions. It is a constant pain. So one thing to definitely do when you are applying for jobs is emphasize that your plan is to work for at least 12 months. And if your plan is to work longer than that, so let's say you're graduating from the program, but you still want to go take your MCAT, or you're graduating and you want to get the clinical hours before you even apply so they can be part of your application process, and it looks like you're going to have 2 gap years, absolutely make sure that that comes through either in a cover letter or a resume, because it makes a huge difference to the employer if they think you've got a longer runway, because it goes back to that concept we talked about where turnover is such a problem. They want to see that you are going to be around. And I'd say most employers are open at 12 months or longer, right? Make sure the employer knows that. The second is training, and sort of ties to how long you're going to be around. If they think you're going to be around for 2 years, they may be more open to taking a risk on doing more upfront training with you. But I would say, generally speaking, again, either at the top of your resume or in a cover letter, if there's anything that you have that will signal to the employer that will reduce the amount of time it will take you to get trained, put that at the top. I see a lot of resumes where people may have even gotten a CCMA certification, or they've done immunizations, or they've worked with electronic health records, and they'll put it at the bottom in their sort of skills section, which oftentimes like is way at the bottom of the resume, and they're starting with education and maybe work experience. 100%, any skills you have that will show that you will not take as long to get trained, put it at the top. I'll see people sometimes put like a healthcare experience section at the top. Maybe they'll put like, relevant skills at the top. That will grab their attention more than the very impressive research work that you may have done. That will get them to actually read down and see the rest of it. And once they start reading the rest of it, you will stand out relative to other candidates who are applying for medical assistant jobs. But lead with the skills, right? Anything that shows them you will not take as long to train. And the third is location. Employers get, Indeed is a very common way for them to get resumes. People will just spray their resumes on Indeed kind of everywhere. So they're used to getting like all these resumes. They're not a fit. They're looking for ways to screen people out quickly. One way employers do that is they look at the address that you put on your resume. And if it is not like close or doesn't make sense relative to where their office is, they don't think you're a serious candidate. That can be particularly problematic if you have a school address. So let's say you're at school right now, but you're going to be working in Philadelphia. You want to work in Philadelphia after you graduate. So you're applying to jobs in Philadelphia, but with a DC or Maryland or Virginia address. It will not make sense to them. And they'll be like, this person doesn't even know where our practice is. Why are they applying to us like in Philadelphia? Forget it. I've seen people handle this a couple ways, either in a cover letter saying like, yes, I live in Virginia, but I'm graduating and I'm moving to Philadelphia. Or they'll put a home and work address on their resume if like maybe they're moving home to Philadelphia. But just keep in mind that the address that you put on your resume is a screen for the employers. And a lot of times that goes, it's sort of a throwaway thing. You sort of feel like I need to put it on there. And they maybe it isn't appreciated that they're actually looking at that and making decisions about who they're going to give interviews to because they lose people all the time to long commutes. So those are three things just to think about. How am I doing on time? Sorry, I'll move quickly. Last big thing is when you get the interview, we see these mistakes all the time. People who are graduating and want to go to PA med school, it's so hard to get clinical jobs. They're willing to kind of take anything. And that may be your reality. You do not want the employer thinking that's true. And sometimes people will sit in an interview and they're like, so why do you want this job? I'm like, well, I'm just looking for clinical experience to work with patients. That may be true, but that's not what they want to hear. What they want to hear is why do you want their job? Right? They want to hire someone who sees the opportunity that they're offering as exactly that, an opportunity and not just a job. So we see a lot of pre-health students answer this question like, well, I need clinical hours to go to medical school. That is not going to make an employer feel great. What's going to make an employer feel great is I want this job because I'm interested in pediatrics, or, you know, I read on your website these kinds of procedures, and the opportunity to work with physicians and PAs to actually do procedures in the office is something that's important to me. That's a much better answer. It leads to number two, which is so many people, you'd be shocked how many people go to interviews and they don't really know what the practice does. They don't really know what they treat, and they can't relate it to why that's relevant for them. Do not make that mistake. Again, employers want to hear that you want their job. And the last thing is the questions you ask at the end of an interview can really matter. So if you get to, you know, at the end of the interview, they're going to say, what questions do you have for me? If you lead with questions like, what are the benefits? Do I get an hour for lunch? Can I work from home? Things that are like logistical. That doesn't show a lot of interest in the position. Those are all relevant and they are important questions, but they are not the questions you should be leading with. You should be leading with questions about the opportunity. You mentioned that I'd be able to work with patients. Can you tell me more about the kind of patient interactions I could have? Can you tell me more about what it would take to be successful in this office? Like, who thrives here? It's things that are opportunity based rather than logistical that will really communicate to the hiring manager that you want their job, not just a job. I know I'm over, so I'll just leave these takeaways up. The one thing I do want to show everybody, and I'm happy to open it up for questions, is one of the things that we offer is a pre-health. I'm going to stop sharing this. Here we go. Let me bring up our job board here. Here we go. So the thing that we are best known for is so like I said, we're all about making it easier for you to get clinical experience. The thing that we're best known for is our job board. And this job board, I'm actually going to refresh it here. We are constantly getting new positions from healthcare offices that are looking to hire pre-med and pre-PA candidates, even if you don't have a medical assistant certificate. So that's what makes this tool better than Indeed, or better than, a lot of the job boards that are out there. So you can see that they range from all kinds of different practices. This is a OBGYN practice in Fairfax, Virginia. They just posted 3 hours ago. They're looking to hire people. We were talking about Philadelphia before, LifeBridge Health System, University of Maryland Health System. All of these positions, when you see it says CapYear certified there, we have verified that they are looking to hire pre-med and pre-PA students directly into these positions. It can be a tremendous resource if you are looking to find employers that want to hire you for a gap year or two. I'll put in the chat where you can get it, but it's jobs.capyear.co. Let me put that in here. Jobs.co. And all you need to do is sign up. It's totally free. You apply to the jobs that make sense for you. And we then actually help make sure that that employers are seeing your resume and then it rises right to the top. The other thing I would put in is for Instagram, we put up, that's at capyear.co. We put a lot of job alerts and other sort of job tips up there that, as you're going through this process, can be helpful. And the last thing I'll say is we're actually in the process right now of becoming a private career school. So we talked a lot about the importance of certification. We're working to actually build our own certification program to make it cheaper and easier for people that are trying to manage a course load like yours to get the certifications that then just make it that much easier to get hired. So we're kind of attacking it on both fronts. Find employers that make it easier to find jobs, and then make it easier to actually get certified. That's really what we're about. So I'll pause right there. Yeah, Gabrielle, I don't want to go over. I hate that I've gone over, and I don't want to eat into Scrub America's time.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We go till like 2:45, so we still have at least a half an hour for Scribe America. But
Okay,
you guys,
great.
any questions that you guys have about CapYear? We do have time if you need a couple more minutes.
Joshua. Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
So first off, thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate it, first of all. And
Thank
my
you for being
question,
here.
of course, my question was, after, how you talked about like time period of laying, like, jobs, knowing how long you plan on being there. Do you
Mhm.
think like also like letting them know when you're applying, even if getting accepted to medical school, you have that time of, space, would that allow them to know like I'll still work even though like I got accepted and I'll work until I'm going into the school? Do you think that would help ease their mind?
So a lot of it depends on how long that the first question they're going to ask is how long is that time period? So if that time period is 3 or 4 months, it's going to be harder, right? If that time period is 12 months, then that's obviously going to be a lot easier. Part of how you may be able to address that is if you have skills that you can kind of show up and be job ready. So whether that's a medical assistant certification, whether that's getting phlebotomy certified, which doesn't take that long, those sorts of things may make them more open to getting that experience, or sort of hiring, because they're like, hey, maybe he's not permanent, but he can come in and we need phlebotomists right now anyway. So sure, come on in, even if it's 3 or 4 months, like, I can work with you as a stopgap. What kind of time frame are you sort of thinking there when you say you've gotten into school already?
Like, while you're working for them, you're in the application cycle as well, I guess.
Oh yeah, that I think is fine. So let's say, for instance, and I don't know the cadence of your program, but let's say you were graduating in June and you've already put your application in. So let's say you've applied this cycle and you'd start working in June. That is for most programs, like that would give, even if you got in, you'd still have about a year before you'd be going to school.
Mm.
So I think again, the ones that do this a lot, they're more focused on how long can you work. So if you're already in the application process, but you can you're not even going to go to school, even if you get in for a year. That's the thing that they really want to hear. So being in the application process is no problem. I think a year is kind of the number they're looking to hear.
Thank you.
Can we work for employers after being accepted to medical school? Oh, Joshua, that was you. Yeah, well, Lana, yeah, sounds like that wasn't the right place. Sort of going down here. I applied to different sites for clinicals and surgical techs. And that's why I was interested. I said I have a true passion for surgery. I think I scared them away with the body parts. Oh, good. Well, there you go. That's a helpful tip. So Moira, thank you for sharing that with everybody. That's great. Yeah, I had a presentation once where I'm a very small company, and this was a very big company, and I wanted to be at like the low end of where they were. And I said, because your bottom is our sweet spot. Let me tell you how that went over. Didn't get the work. That didn't come out right. So I feel you, Moira. Any other questions at all? Well, I'll put it out there one more time, particularly for people that are planning on, that want to work in, Virginia, DC, Baltimore, Philly, New York, Boston. We're constantly getting new positions. I would encourage everybody to sign up. You just go to jobs.capyear.co, and it's totally free to sign up. And then once you sign up, as new positions become available, you'll get them delivered straight to your inbox. You apply to the jobs that make sense for you, and you can finally find a place where they're looking to hire pre-med and pre-PA students, and we make it a lot easier to find jobs that can be a great fit for a gap year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. If you guys have no other questions, we'll probably transition over. But we do send out a weekly email, so I'll make sure I put that address, like the website, in their weekly email so they have access to that as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Up next, we now have Sugat from Scribe America, who's going to tell you a little bit more about a different clinical opportunity and their company.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Sugat. I think everyone can see my screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. So let me first show you this very beautiful picture. As you see, there is Scribe America. There is a doctor treating a patient, and someone is there nearby the doctor and typing. That's a medical scribe. So that's what we are basically going to talk about today. So first, who is Scribe America? Scribe America is a company where it was founded in 2003 in California with one single scribe or physician and pair. But now, today, we have opportunities in over 50 states, as well as in Canada and Australia, staffing more than 40 different specialties. So we are the fastest growing scribe company, working with over 3,500 healthcare facilities and employing over 15,000 scribes. We have been recognized as one of America's best mid-sized employers by Forbes, so that is pretty much good for us, and have earned multiple national news publications, as well as the 2023 winner of Handshakes Early Talent Award. So pretty much basically, Scribe America is doing a very great job providing employ to various students all over United States, as well as Canada and Australia. Now, if we have to tell what is a scribe, so in the medical industry, a scribe is the documentation specialist. So you type or you write for the doctor, and what you do is you record the patient's information and medical records in real time. Your day in the life looks different depending on which provider or specialty, but would focus basically on reviewing the schedule for the day and begin to prep charts by collecting past medical information. And once the provider arrives, you will begin seeing the patients with them. And it's really fun fast-paced as well as engaging. So overall, what you are going to do is you are just going to chart the patient's medical histories, the procedures that you see, or whatever the lab results come out, the consultants, and everything, as well as the follow-up results in the EMR that the hospital system provides to you. So what are the benefits? As you can see that Scribe provides you a lot of benefits. First, standing out amongst grad school and professional program applicants, you'll be having relevant experience to include on your resume. So you will be applied to apply for professional school with a letter of recommendation from the physician you have worked with. And finally, you can also acquire professional mentors and build connections for the future. So when you work for a provider under Scribe America, as you build up good interest or good teaming up with the provider, you'll be able to get the letter of recommendation, and that is very, very important for you to apply to any programs or schools that you want to get into. So now here I have a picture from the tips some of the former scribes have given. So this is basically about when you go on to interview for the Scribe America, or when you are about to apply. So I will just repeat some of the words from here. Some of they say that you have to be punctual for sure and professional, and you would always have to be proud of your work. And when going through training, there will be a training before you can go onto the floor or onto the hospital. I'll talk about it later on, but while you are in the training, you are supposed to use the flashcards so that you will be more efficient and effective, and always never afraid to ask questions. Likewise, you need to type. You need to have a very good typing speed, of course, because you will be recording everything in the EMR, and it is a very fast pacing work. So you need to have a typing speed. I will tell it about later on what are the basic requirements at least. And you need to apply at least 3 to 4 weeks before you can start here, as are some of the things that previous scribes have to say. Now, as you are scribing for a provider, so there are various ways you are impacting the provider, and the providers actually enjoy having medical scribes around. Why? Because they are able to become more efficient. Medical scribes, they decrease the time spent in facilities and increase the number of patient scenes, because you will be doing all the documentation and clerical works for the provider. So the provider is able to provide maximum time and maximum effort in treating the patients, rather than most of the time indulging into any documentation or clerical work. So that's why the providers are highly impacted, and ultimately the patient care is improved. So that's what basically Scribe is doing in the background. Now, if we have to talk about what Scribe America has to offer you, I'll be telling you about this in coming slides. So you will receive first-hand direct exposure to the patient care. You will know about various medical terminologies, disease processes, the procedures, medications, treatments, and the medical decisions of a variety of advanced healthcare clinicians and specialists. So you'll be working in a healthcare facility side by side with the clinicians, and while they give you an invaluable and totally unique experience, and is really a very good thing for your career path. Furthermore, our past employees that excelled at Scribe have gone on to be accepted to various medical schools, PA schools, nursing schools, healthcare administration, and other graduate programs across the country. And as I told earlier, that you can also have letter of recommendations from Scribe America, as well as from the clinicians that you have worked with. And lastly, it is really a fun job. If you really want to get into medicine, or if you want to do something for treating patients, then you will definitely like doing what you go into Scribe, as you know. Now, besides only working as a scribe that you will be documenting for the provider, there are various careers or career paths that help you internally grow and further help develop your many leadership positions. And there are some of the positions that Scribe America provides. Some of them here we have listed some of them. For instance, you can work as a chief scribe, you can work as a scribe trainer, and even a manager. You can represent Scribe as an ambassador and incorporate various career tracks. So overall, as you are into the Scribe and your years pass along by, you become eligible and you can apply to various kinds of positions that the Scribe America provides. Now, aside from gaining paid experience in healthcare, of course, Scribe America provides you a paid training as well as paid job on hourly basis. There are also some other benefits. For instance, you will be getting additional perks like health, vision, and dental insurance. You'll be having some 10% off in Kaplan courses for those of you who are preparing for MCAT, GRE, or the exams, as well as you'll be having some fun discounts, for example, in Apple or various rental car companies, hotels, and other overall networking experiences. On top of all that, we pay you to complete, yes, as I told that we pay for you to complete your classroom and clinical training, which means you get paid to learn to be a scribe. And we have a referral program as well, where you can make a $200 amount for every friend or family member you refer to gets hired. So that's pretty much beneficial. And if you want to know more, or if you want to get more detail into what benefits are there in details, then I'll be providing you an email ID at the end where you can contact and ask various questions regarding anything regarding Scribe America or how can you apply for. Now, there is a new and exciting program as well that we have started in August of this year. Is the American University of Caribbean School of Medicine, along with the Ross University School of Medicine, began partnering with Scribe America to offer $9,500 for first semester discount to all the Scribe America employees who are accepted into either medical school. So it is a really very exciting opportunity to able to save money on your tuition and get hands-on experience as you continue to work alongside our providers. So Scribe America provides a lot on not only onto your experience for documentation or your direct exposure in healthcare setup, but also there are some benefits that Scribe America is providing, and is really fun to have or fun to be into. So as I told, we have lots of opportunities for everyone's lifestyles and career goals. Our focus is in-person scribes, but there is something called telescribe as well, where you have to have a virtual setting back home, and there will definitely be some interviews, and all the devices or whatever you have is going to be Excel first, and then once you are thorough, or once the hiring team is able to tell that you can be hired, so then you can work along. So that is really fun thing. I know that you may have questions regarding whether what's the difference between in-person and telescribe. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it in for the slides now. So you may be wondering, how do we set up you for process? So some of the things that you want to keep in mind when interviewing with the hiring team are, first and foremost is, of course, the location and your availability, and if it is going to change because you are in school. And of course, because you are going to type, you need to have a typing speed test. And your goal is to at least type 40 words per minute. And in certain places, you are also going to be asked for your immunizations. As you can see, it may be a childhood or COVID vaccine. Nowadays, COVID-19 vaccine is asked from almost most of the hospitals that provide the telescribing, or not the telescribing, but the virtual but the in-person scribing, because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the hiring team at last will let you know everything that you need for your specific locations as well. Now, about our shifts, some things to note in regards to our shifts are our clinicians want one scribe during their full shift, and shifts are typically 8 to 12 consecutive hours. We like candidates, if possible, once hired, to start immediately, because our training and onboarding can take 2 to 3 months. During this phase, you will have about 5 to 10 hours per week of work, but we are flexible for students with school schedules. But you need to keep in mind, for the emergency department and inpatient side, you could have nights and holiday shift to work. And for outpatient clinics, you must be available to work 2 shifts per week between 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And it depends upon your availability. Your hiring team can best accommodate your schedule based on your location and provider availability. Lastly, we'd love to keep you around for at least a year. Yes, the 1 year time frame is a key thing over here, but are flexible with all time frames. Just keep in mind that we don't hire seasonally. There is nothing called seasonal scribing jobs or something like that. We are looking for permanent placements with our candidates. So that is one very important thing that you need to keep into your mind before you apply to scribing. So this is one of the examples of how you can show your availability to the team when you interview. Like for instance, if you are available on Monday from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. or from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. These are just one of examples that I'm showing. At least you need to have a 5+ consecutive hours of your availability time that you can commit into your job. And whenever you are not available, if you are available for all day, depends on your schedule back in your school and the time that you can commit during the week. So what are the next steps? So you will definitely be interviewing with the hiring team, as I told earlier, and then the hiring team will need to email you a confirmation to proceed with the hiring. So sometimes the emails go into the spam folder, so you need to check it whether it is there or not. And after your hiring interview is done, you need to have a complete workday onboarding paperwork, and you need to have a background check as well. And yes, you need to your introduction to your manager is all along the way going on. So this is basically the time frame, or what we call a timeline, where how the entire process of you applying for Scribe America to the time you'll be able to work solo is or undergoes. So first, you will be Scribe University after or Scribe America, after hiring you via interview process, will provide you something called a virtual training, which is of course a paid training. And this is in fact a very short crash course in medicine, where you can expect quizzes on each lesson, like medical terminology, medical abbreviations, pathophysiology, or maybe physician documentation and coding billing criteria. And you will be required to provide a final exam at the end of your course. And once you successfully pass that, you can move on to the next step, which is bridge training. And in the bridge training, what you have is you will have to gain the skills, or you will know how to use the skills you learn during Scribe University or during the virtual training you gain, and then you will be applying it when you can step into clinical training. Now coming to the clinical training part, clinical training will be in person at the healthcare facility you are assigned to work at. And finally, after your successful completion of clinical training, your performance will be monitored closely for accuracy, efficiency, and satisfaction. And you will be tested, or you will be evaluated if you are able to take initiative and you have consistent skill development by your chief scribe finally. And once everything is done, everything from interview day to the hiring process to all your trainings are completed, you will be able to work as a solo scribe. And all this timeline, all this time frame especially takes from about 6 weeks to 3 months. So the onboarding process may be seen as quite a lengthier time, because 6 weeks to 3 months is really a long period of time for you to work as a solo scribe. But overall, everything is really fun, and you are really going to learn so many things, and everything counts actually and is needed as well. So lastly, if I have to say how you are going to keep in contact with us, or if you want to apply, or if you want to show your interest, then I would want the interested candidates to click on the click scan this QR code and fill out the interest form, so that you can be connected, or our hiring team can be in touch with you. And of course, the email address there you see in the slide, that's from our team who responds to all your queries or anything that you want to know, and maybe you want to apply, or any questions that you want to have. Now, I have completed my presentation. I know this was a short one, but I do understand that you might have got a very bird's eye view about what Scribe America is, how it hires, or what are the benefits it provides to your team, or to various students, and with it, how can you grow professionally or personally. Now, if any questions, I would really love to hear or answer them. And if you want to, you can also further down the queries to the email address that I have provided there. Also, please don't forget to the QR code there, don't forget to scan and fill out the interest form, as I told earlier.
Any questions, you guys? All right, I think we might be set then. Sugat, thank you so much for that presentation on Scribe America. And I'll make sure to include that email as well in case anyone kind of missed it or has any other questions regarding it.
Yep, I'll keep it down there in our chat box as well.
All right, anything else from either of you two?
No, we really appreciate the time, especially on a Friday before spring break. Yeah, anything we can do to help get clinical experience for the people on this call, we'd love to do it. So we hope you sign up.
Awesome. And thank you so much again for the both of you. It was very helpful, even if might have been a little low energy today before spring break. All right. And so before you all leave, the students, please make sure you fill out the poll for today for attendance. Your poll is going to be GapYear, GAPYEAR.
You can just change it to CapYear. That's fine.
We're close. Yeah, some free advertising.
I need to always take it. Gabby, thank you for organizing all this. Appreciate it, everybody.
Of course. Yeah, thank you so much. Have a nice weekend, both of you, and all the students as well. Have a nice weekend, you guys.
Bye.
Yes, bye everyone.
Is anyone having trouble with their poll?